This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. Hello everyone, Andy Pickering here, and we have a very good show for you today. But before we get into it, need to shout out our new sponsor, Nexo. Yes indeed, are you ready to grow your wealth with the world's leading digital assets institution, Nexo? Well, you should be ready, because you can earn up to 12% on your digital assets with Nexo's high yield savings account. That's right. So treat yourself, treat your crypto, and treat your fiat with the industry's best crypto and fiat services, which include compounding interest paid out daily. There are 18 available cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, various stablecoins, and many more. And 3 fiat currencies are accepted, the euro, the pound, and USD. And Nexo has up to $375 million worth of insurance across all custodial assets. Top-ups and withdrawals are available at any time, and there are 0 fees for using the Nexo Earn Suite. So, are you ready to start earning? Of course you are. Simply go to nexo.io, and of course that is spelt NEXO.io. And now it's on with the show. My guest today is Brian Wong. Brian is the co-founder of the BTSE Crypto Asset Exchange and Futures Trading Platform. And well, it's welcome back to the show, Brian.
Hi, Andy. Thanks a lot for having me again.
Well, great to have you back. As I say, you have been on the show once before, but it was some time ago. It was almost sort of back in, the early days of the show. I think it was back in 2019. And goodness, 2019, that sounds a little bit like the distant past from where we sit today, because just, so much has happened since then in the world, certainly in crypto, but today, we're really here to learn more about BTSE. BTSE, is that how you say it?
Yeah, so we kind of have 2 ways to say the name. One is the more, crypto native way. It's BTSE. And then the other more formalized way is BTSE. But we like to just go with BTSE.
All right, let's go with BTSE, Brian. I like it. That's how I've always read it, so we'll go with that. All right, so look, we're here to catch up with your good self, learn more about where BTSE is at in the market today, and of course, I think we'll touch on your collaborations with the Brave New Coin market data team, who have created some index products, which you guys have developed futures trading products around, including some new perpetual swaps. So look, lots to talk about. Let's get to know you a bit better. First off, just for the benefit of the listeners, please introduce yourself and let's just have a little bit of your personal backstory.
Sure. So my name is Brian. I'm one of the co-founders of BTSE. So the founding members and I, we co-founded BTSE back in, let's say, at the end of 2017, when we saw an opportunity in the market to really bring a high performance, more institutional grade trading engine into the crypto market. I think a lot of back then was sort of the, you might say, the third boom cycle in crypto. So a lot of new retail traders were getting into the space, and volume in crypto trading or crypto derivatives trading boomed during the 2017 cycle. And a lot of the existing, you might call OG players back then, there were some sort of performance scaling issues with exchanges. So just a quick background about myself. I started my career at Goldman in New York in the fixed income division. We were doing market making, quantitative trading in fixed income products, in particular US Treasury bonds, interest rate futures in that area. And then later on, I was in a fund in mainland China, where we were also doing market making, arbitrage trading in the variety of onshore Chinese derivative products. So at some point back in 2014, 2015, the onshore China index, equity index future called CSI 300 index future was actually the most traded index future in the world. It exceeded S&P futures and S&P mini futures listed on CNB. There were a lot of retail traders in China who were trading these CSI 300 index future, and it was also coincided with the bull market in the Chinese Asia's equities market in 2014 cycle. So we were doing market making, we were doing arbitrage across index futures, across the onshore Chinese commodity futures, like iron ore futures, all sorts of commodity futures that were listed in the Chinese derivatives exchange.
Very good, Brian. And so I think it would also be useful just to hear your thoughts, really love to hear your perspective on how you guys see a BTSE in terms of where a BTSE sits in the wider crypto exchange ecosystem, across the world. So just, I guess, be good to get some quick thoughts on, the different customer profiles that BTSE serves. What are the different customer profiles and what are the trading solutions that you offer them?
Yeah, so I think the founders of BTSE, we have pretty simple mission since day one, is to really bring crypto and crypto trading to the masses, make it accessible to as many people as possible. That's really sort of the, I would say all of our products design revolves around this central core idea. So from this central idea, we have some technical innovation that we brought up upon into the space. So on the spot side, we have something called a multi-currency spot order book. And I think we are the first, and as far as I know, I think we're still the only one that has this. Basically, traditionally in crypto, the pair that has the most liquidity is US dollar pair. So BTC USD or ETH USD. And other pairs tends to sort of pale in comparison in terms of liquidity. Some pairs like yuan, CNY, and Korean won are still very liquid. But there are a lot of different fiat currencies pairs in the world. And let's say for example, El Salvador, which legalized Bitcoin as a tender recently, perhaps the native BTC pair may not have as much of a liquidity as a US dollar pair. So what we have done with this multi-currency spot order book is that every currency pair, whether or not you're trading BTC, Hong Kong dollar, BTC euro, BTC anything, enjoys the same liquidity pool. All the liquidity are pooled together into one single order book. So everyone can trade against each other, whether or not it could be someone in South America trading with someone in Europe. So that, we think, it solves one of the fundamental fragmentation problems in crypto. And then we also have a suite of futures product, perpetual futures, regular time-based future, including the BNC-BTSE index, basket index future products. We have a credit card program because we think bridging that gap between crypto and traditional world, where you can spend your crypto, Visa, MasterCard, Amex network, we think that's an important gap that we need to bridge. And that's one of the core product offering that we have on BTSE. And something that's new, we also tiptoeing into the NFT world. So right now we're working with artists, different collectors, for example, to provide an NFT platform where they can turn the content or products that they produce into a non-fungible token and be able to offer this NFT to interested customers. So right now we have this NFT white label platform that we are working with various partners around the world to help them realize that.
Fantastic. So lots going on then by the sound of it, Brian. But I'd really love to talk about, I guess, futures trading, right? Because, yeah, you guys were, I guess, one of the first crypto exchanges to have the various different futures products. And now, as I understand it, you're looking at these new perpetual swaps products, right? So what's the background there?
Yeah, so there's actually quite an interesting background to how futures evolved in crypto. If you look at traditional financial world, most people, at least on the derivative side, they trade regular time-based futures. That's how futures are defined in the first place. They expire at a future date, and at that date of expiration, there's an exchange of cash for cash settled futures, or there's an exchange of real physical products for physically settled futures, like commodity, for a lot of commodity futures. So you take delivery, or you provide delivery of, let's say, some barrels of oil according to the futures contract spec. So what's kind of interesting about crypto is the future space in crypto actually it boomed because of a concept called perpetual futures. It's actually what you call a financial swap, which is really popular also in financial world, where let's say a hedge fund would gain exposure to an underlying stock like Tesla or Uber or Tencent via a swap contract against an investment bank like Goldman. And why would they use the swap? Is because a swap offers financial leverage. It offers them to be short, and in some sense, a hedge fund can also hide their exposure, not expose some of their positions because of disclosure requirements. If, let's say, you're holding the underlying stock. So in crypto, perpetual swaps, perpetual futures took the center stage rather than regular futures. And there are convenience of it because, let's say, for a retail trader, you don't have to roll a futures, and you can, for perpetual futures, exactly what the name suggests is perpetual. It never expires. You do have to pay funding rates as a result of that. So for us at BTSE, we converted a new development that we are recently doing is we converted the BBCX and BBAX basket index futures to perpetual futures, because that's where we see the most demand from our users. We have had the time-based index future for quite a number of months, and users have been asking us to basically convert that into perpetual futures. And that's really sort of the idiosyncrasies of crypto derivative market. Traders, they want to trade perpetual rather than trading time-based futures.
Right, got it. So let's just understand a bit more about these indexes that you mentioned that can now be traded as perpetual swaps, right? So you mentioned, I think, the BBCX and the BBAX. So you guys at BTSE partnered with some of my colleagues here at the crypto data company, the Brave New Coin, of course, and to create these indexes, right? So the BBCX is the BNC-BTSE Composite Index, which tracks the real-time market performance of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. And the BBAX is, I think the constituents are Ethereum, XRP, Litecoin, and EOS, Right. So I guess just before we talk, well, I'd love to just hear a little bit about the background to these indexes, Brian, and I guess how you ended up working with the market data team here at Brave New Coin to build these indexes.
Yeah, sure. So the core idea is that there is an opportunity in the crypto markets to offer what we call basket index futures,
right,
and basket indices. Again, we like to draw comparisons to traditional finance, where in traditional finance, the most liquid, the most traded derivatives product is the CME S&P mini future, or the S&P future. And that's because when you are looking at the basket of underlying products, you enjoy the benefits of diversification. You enjoy the benefits of lower volatility. And it provides a great way for you to get exposure to or hedge against a sort of general market movements. At the end of the day, a lot of traders, what they care about is what is the broad market movement. Maybe they don't want to get overly concentrated exposure to a particular coin just because, hey, one day, maybe China authorities might decide to ban that particular coin. So when you have exposure to a basket of coins or stocks, you enjoy the benefits of diversification, where if, let's say, one of those coins, something happens to it, your basket as a whole is still, the volatility of your basket is not as significant. And that's kind of what got us started on this BNC-BTSE index suite of products that we have. It's both the index methodology and also having futures that are traded and settled based on these indices. And we are the first to have that kind of separation of church and state, where the index provider and the platform, the future provider, are separate. So BNC provides the index methodology and the calculation, and BTSE, we provide the platform where people can trade the future based on that index. We are the first, and I believe we are still the only one that does that.
Yes, that's exactly right, Brian. And so, for listeners, for anyone who's interested in learning more about the methodology and the composition, constituent exchanges, and all that kind of thing that goes into the different methodologies behind these indices. All that documentation is on bravenewcoin.com, and but I can probably put specific links to those pages in the show notes. But so, well, tell me, Brian. So these. The indices, these different indices, have been tradable on BTSE, since 2019, right? So, just again, now, explain the difference now between what was tradable before and what is now possible with these new perpetual swaps.
Yes, so I can touch upon how the market for these index future markets have evolved since October 2019 is when we first launched. And also, I actually want to touch a little bit upon the performance of these index futures
yes.
compared to the underlying, say, Bitcoin or ETH.
Okay.
Just to show some comparison.
Very good.
Yeah, so on the first point, when we first launched in October 2019, we only had one index future, and that's the main coin index future. It's what we call the BBCX index. So as you mentioned, it's comprised of 60% BTC, 37.8% ETH, and 2% LTC. It's a time-based future when we launched. And then since then, we have expanded the index future program to now we have we have 5 basket index futures. So the BBCX, the main coin one, the BBAX, which is the core altcoin index future. We have DeFi perpetual swap. We have the BBIX, the interoperability index perpetual swap. And then we have the BMVI, the MakerVolt index perpetual swap. So in total, we have 5. And the BBCX and BBAX will be converted into perpetual swap also at the end of this month. The overall trading volume of these basket index suite of futures have grown a lot since launch. I would say, just to give you an idea, the daily trading volume grown about 20 times compared to launch. So the market size has grown, we are still seeing growth, a lot of strong growth in terms of number of users and trading volume. And I think we're just really getting started on these index future products.
Fantastic. Well, look, Brian, so you said that you wanted to touch on the performance of the different indexes, different indices since their inception, and I guess the only way to compare the performances would be really to benchmark them against whatever crypto asset is the dominant player in that particular indice, right?
Yeah, so there are some really interesting stats. I think there are, I would say, 2 main category of stats that I want to compare. And I just want to also actually give credit to Ryan from BNC, who helped compile these backtesting data on the index future versus the
Shout out to
benchmark.
Ryan. Shout out to Ryan. Thank you for your work.
Yeah, and so so the 2 category of data that I want to compare is first is just outright return. And then the second category is what we call the Sharpe ratio. Should I explain what Sharpe ratio is?
Please.
Yeah, so outright return, I think a lot of people would care mostly about outright return. But Sharpe ratio is also a really important category, is what is the amount of return that you get per unit of risk. And risk is usually measured in standard deviation. So what that means is, let's say I'm getting a 50% return this year on a particular coin. Is that a good number? Is that a bad number? How does it compare? Let's say coin A is getting 50%, coin B is also getting 50%. How do you compare the return of these 2 coins? Are they the same? So a Sharpe ratio comes into play is if coin A has a deviation or fluctuation in the price of, let's say, 80%. Whereas coin B has a fluctuation of 10%. When you compare coin A to coin B actually has a much more attractive return profile because it only fluctuates 10% to achieve that 50% return, whereas coin A has to fluctuate 80% in order to achieve that 50% return. So Sharpe ratio is basically the ratio of these 2. It's return over risk to give you an idea of what is your return per unit of risk that you are exposed to. So the higher the Sharpe ratio, the more attractive it is. So it's an apple. It gives you a way to compare apples to apples. So getting back to the BNC-BTSE index suite, it's really interesting. This is year-to-date data for 2021. Bitcoin has an annualized, 2021 year-to-date up until, I believe, maybe 2 days ago. So the market correction today and yesterday might not have been fully accounted for. So Bitcoin has an annualized return of 20%. The BNC-BTSE BBCX main coin index has an annualized return of 152%. So that's a big outperformance right there. And for BBAX, the altcoin index has an annualized return of 650%, and ETH year to date has a return of 580%. So you can see just from the first category, which is the outright return, both of these index futures have outperformed the underlying sort of relative benchmark. For BBCX, it's 152% versus 20% performance of Bitcoin year to date.
And so the reason for that, Brian, is because with the BBCX, as while Bitcoin is the the dominant weighting, but that performance is lifted by the addition of Ethereum to that index, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So ETH has about a 40% weight in that index, and if you sort of look at the ETH BTC ratio, it's been one of the most prominent topics during this bull cycle.
You're referring to the potential flippening, Brian.
Yeah, the flippening. Yeah. Yeah. So just to give you some stats on that, the ETH BTC ratio went from about 0.02 to the peak of 0.08. So wow. That is a 4 times outperformance of ETH during BTC. I would also say it's not really news per se. During bull cycle, ETH does outperform Bitcoin. And perhaps during bear cycle, that flips.
Yeah, very much so, very much so.
So, and then moving on to the second category of interesting data is the Sharpe ratio for the index future versus the underlying benchmark. And this is where actually the outperformance is even more significant, because the basket nature of index future provides diversification effect on your portfolio, and that usually reduces your portfolio volatility or the standard deviation of the portfolio, and as a result, the Sharpe ratio increases, and you want a high Sharpe ratio. That's really what you want to care about as let's say a trader or portfolio manager. So for BBCX, the Sharpe ratio is 1.85, which is a good Sharpe, and then for Bitcoin it's 0.27. So that is a very significant difference in the Sharpe ratio. So return over per unit risk of the BBCX index versus the underlying benchmark Bitcoin. And I would say, yeah, that's a very, very substantial difference.
Fascinating indeed. All right, well, what comes next in the, I guess, the futures markets, Brian? How do you see this segment of the market evolving? There's lots of different futures offerings available now as different players roll out different products, but this is obviously a part of the market that you guys specialize in, right?
We are very bullish on the basket index suite of products. We think that's really where the future of crypto derivatives trading is going, in that direction. And that's part of it is because, I think one of the main narratives of the current bull cycle is institutionalization in crypto, where you get a lot of these traditional hedge funds, pension funds, starting to allocate part of their capital into trading crypto spot and also derivatives. So these guys will need something like basket index future to hedge a portfolio, or to gain exposure to an easy way to gain exposure to an underlying basket of assets. And there's really no better instruments to express that exposure or to do portfolio hedging than index future. So we think as crypto markets continue to evolve, more institutions going to participate in this market, demand for basket index futures is going to continue to pick up. And that's what we have also seen in the past few months too. Right now, I think the crypto derivatives market is still dominated by what we call Delta One products, so linear futures. Quite possibly, I think we might start to see more and more options trading volume in this space relative to futures.
Yes, indeed. Well, I think you're exactly right that, there is just at a really high level, an index is just such an effective way to track the value of an entire market sector, right, with just a single price. And I think, as you pointed out, it's just fascinating to see that both the BNC-BTSE Composite Index and the BNC-BTSE Altcoin Index have both provided, as you've explained, Brian, I guess, better total and risk-adjusted returns than their largest constituent assets through the year to date. And so I think, you can see all the details of how these indices are put together. Well, the methodology is on the Brave New Coin website, but all the details on how to trade these different indices, of course, are on BTSE, the BTSE Exchange website as well. And so, well, as we finish off this part of the podcast, I'd love to get your thoughts, maybe just some kind of general market commentary. Firstly, just, anything that you guys are watching in terms of the volatility that we've seen. Well, I mean, throughout this year, really, we've seen, some substantial volatility to the upside to start off the year. We've since seen some fairly steep corrections, and then just as we record in the last 24 hours or so, China have continued their crackdown on Bitcoin mining, and also the wider crypto ecosystem, and they don't seem too keen to allow their citizens to engage too much with crypto trading of any kind at the moment. And well, the market has responded in kind, which means down. So look, let's just get some general commentary. Anything that you guys are watching at the moment, Brian?
It's really pretty amazing how fast the market changes in crypto. Let's say compare, right now we're in middle of June compared to the start of the year. Only 6 months have passed, and a lot of things in terms of the market structure has changed, or even the market sentiment has changed pretty dramatically. So, on one hand, like you said, there's news coming from China. They're banning sort of retail involvement from trading crypto. They are banning mining. So a lot of them miners in China actually have to shut off. And a lot of the hash power, it's migrating to North America or South America, or other parts of the world. And on the other hand, you see Michael Saylor from MicroStrategy, who continues to buy Bitcoin in pretty big quantity, and he's really going all in on Bitcoin. Continues to issue debt to fund his purchase of Bitcoin. So he is really sort of all in, really going all in into Bitcoin. And what's also very interesting is if you look at the start of the year, the market structure side is CME futures were trading at a huge contango. Same with basically futures on BTSE and all the other different futures exchange. And you look at the also the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, the GBTC, that was also trading at a premium at the start of the year. So 6 months has passed. So a lot of things have changed. That CME future spaces, the contango went from, I believe, around maybe 12, 14%. Now, actually very recently, it just hit negative basis. So it's now in backwardation for futures. And that's also the same case on BTSE too. And you look at GBTC Trust, that has gone into a negative discount on the GBTC versus the NAV value. So in some sense, the market went from really bullish to now quite the opposite in a span of 6 months. And that a lot of that negative sentiment is expressed via market structure like future basis or GBTC premium discounts to some extent. GBTC has its own little quirks because of its creation schedule, but the future basis tells you a lot in some sense.
Yeah, interesting times indeed. And well, as you say, Brian, we are really just in June, so yeah, not even we're about halfway through the year, and I don't know, man, it's just who knows what will happen, but I do know that Michael Saylor, one way or another, he is sitting on a big pile of bitcoins. He is really the dragon sitting on the metaphorical pile of gold. So, man, it's just... And I don't know how long it's going to take. 1 year, 2 year, 5 years. 5 years from now, Michael Saylor is either going to look like the most genius, ballsy investor of all time, or he'll have a lot of egg on his face. Which one is it, Brian?
So I think, I remember seeing some stats recently. I think at the moment he sits on 2% of the total supply of Bitcoin. So I think that comes out to about 400,000 BTC.
Yep.
I think if it continues to increase this holding at the current rate, he is really how you would define the biggest whale in town. And you know, you might even call him, you know, he is now Satoshi because he holds so many Bitcoin. But then, you know, again, you know, you might say, well, Bitcoin is about decentralization. So if you have one player holding 10% or 20% of BTC, then what does that mean? Is that a good thing for the ecosystem, or is that a bad thing for the ecosystem? I certainly hope Michael Saylor is going to succeed, because that means Bitcoin succeeds, and that's good for the space, good for all of us, and I think it's good for the future of the financial system of the world, because there's a high level of decentralization.
Yes, indeed, Brian. Hard to argue with that. And look, I mean, Michael Saylor, as much as, you know, people like to poke some gentle fun at him, shall we say, because, you know, there really is not a bigger Bitcoin bull on the planet at this point. But man, you've just got to admire the sheer conviction of the man, and who, you know, really is prepared to go all in and just keep flying the flag for Bitcoin in the flamboyant and colourful way that he does. So you got to admire the balls on the guy, really. So yeah, shout out Michael Saylor. But Brian, let's go to a very quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll finish off with the very famous Crypto Conversation hot take round.
Grow your wealth with the world's leading digital assets institution, Nexo. Earn up to 12% on your digital assets with Nexo's high yield savings account. Treat yourself, your crypto and fiat with the industry best crypto and fiat services, featuring compounding interest paid out daily, 18 available cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, stablecoins, and more. 3 fiat currencies are accepted: Euro, Pounds, and USD. Up to $375 million insurance on all custodial assets, top-ups and withdrawals available at any time, and 0 fees for using Nexo Earn Suite. Start earning at nexo.io. That's nexo.io.
All right, we are back, and I'm with Brian Wong. Brian is the co-founder of the BTSE Crypto Asset Exchange and Futures Trading Platform, host to some very enticing and fun to trade crypto indices, several of which were built by the Brave New Coin data team, which is, always fun to chat about. Now, back to the topic at hand, though. Brian, I like to finish each Crypto Conversation podcast with a quick round of rapid-fire Crypto Conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Yeah.
All right, just want your hot takes, Brian. Take your best shot. Here we go. Brian, where do you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-coin opportunist spectrum?
I think I'm more of a multi-coin maximalist.
Very nice answer. I like that. Okay. Well, Brian, we've talked about Michael Saylor. He has some very, very strong conviction in Bitcoin. But what would you say is your firmest conviction, crypto opinion?
I think Bitcoin is going to succeed. It will. It is still the granddaddy, the OG of crypto. And the thesis that Bitcoin is a store of value, that's an anti-inflationary hedge, will continue to solidify itself in the financial world.
Very nice, Brian. Well, look, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. Whatever you like here, Brian, Bitcoin, blockchain, futures trading, what does it all look like in 10 years' time?
I think on the crypto or Bitcoin, sorry, let me do that again. I think on the Bitcoin side, we will start to see more countries accepting Bitcoin as a legal tender. And we'll also start to see more of these national-wide digital currency initiatives being put into place and into real-world practical use. So I think that's a real really national level financial innovation that's going on right now at this very moment. And on the derivative side, I think we will continue to see, we'll see the index future grow. And I think over the next decade will become a very core part of crypto derivatives trading. And I certainly hope index future will become the highest volume product that's traded. And I also expect to see a lot more non-linear products like options, accumulators, the exotic structured products that will come into sort of more widespread trading and acceptance by traders, investors, and so on.
Very nice, Brian. Very nice. Fascinating indeed. Well, look, on a similar note, William Gibson said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. You will have heard this quote. It's a very famous quote, particularly in crypto circles. But look, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, Brian? But most people just aren't really aware of it.
So maybe I have a little bit of a recency bias here, but I would say the El Salvador accepting Bitcoin as a legal tender is a very significant development for crypto and for the financial system. Basically, they're accepting a non-national currency, a digital currency that is completely decentralized as a form of payment in the country. So that is a really fundamental shift in the economics of how that country is going to work. It may affect the lending power, the borrowing power, and the ability to control inflation in some sense for the country. And it's a really, really interesting experiment on a national scale. And that's why I think the future is really right in front of us. How it plays out over there might affect how we see crypto in general being accepted more widely, potentially as a legal tender in more countries.
Yeah, I tend to agree, Brian. And yeah, I mean, the news out of El Salvador, it is amazing, and it just feels like it's kind of underappreciated by the market so far. But you know, on a long enough time for horizon, that isn't going to matter. And it's fantastic to see El Salvador make a Bitcoin legal tender, and I'm just so fascinated by this idea that they're going to harness the power of their volcanoes to try and start mining Bitcoin. And I think, you know, if they can do that successfully, you know, there'll be a lot of other little countries that will look at that and think, well, you know, we've got a volcano or a big river and a big dam, hydropower or whatever it is. Like I was talking to some guys here at Brave New Coin yesterday. Here in New Zealand, you know, we've got some dams. I don't think we can move quite as quickly as El Salvador, but I guarantee, you know, these geopolitical moves, they will start to play out over the next 10 years, won't they, Brian? All right, let's finish this off, Brian. I think it's time to zoom out, basically, time to get weird. What do you see as the long-term future for the human race, Brian? Do you see dystopia or utopia?
Utopia.
Yes.
I think in our lifetime we might actually be on Mars or some other planet. I think that's pretty crazy to think about.
Certainly is. I'm not sure if I'd want to be one of the first settlers on Mars. I'm not sure that really would be a utopian experience. It'd be a lot of hard work terraforming Mars for the generations that come after. But someone's got to be the first one on the rocket ship. All right. But finally, on a related note again, Brian, I have to ask, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, show, or universe?
Have you heard of Doraemon?
Oh, I'm not sure. Say that again.
Doraemon.
I don't think I have.
It's a Japanese comic.
Okay.
Yeah, where it's a cat that came from the future, and he has a pocket where he has all sorts of futuristic tool. He has a time machine that he can pull out of his pocket, and you know, he has tools that can bring him from point A to point B instantaneously. But yeah, Doraemon is a classic Japanese comic, and my favorite. I guess you might call it not really science fiction, but it looks sci-fi enough to me, Brian. I've just looking at the Wikipedia page here. So Doraemon is Japanese manga series, first serialized in 1969. Yeah, Japanese cat from the future. Well, look, I love it. All right. Hey, thank you for joining us on the show today, Brian, to talk about the BTSE exchange and the different indices, the different index products that you guys have on the exchange, and the futures trading options you have. So look, close this out. Just tell the people, for anyone still listening here as we close out the show, why should they sign up with BTSE and engage your services to trade crypto? Thanks a lot, Andy, for having me on the show. It's a real pleasure to be on this podcast the second time. For BTSE, I think we have a really comprehensive suite of products. We've been around for quite some time. And if you sign up on BTSE right now, you can get 20% off of your trading fees.
Fantastic. Well, a good deal. And well, nothing else to say really, Brian, except I guess, tell the people where they can go to find you on your various platforms. If you're on, what's your Twitter handle and so on, and what is the URL for BTSE?
So BTSE's website, make sure you remember this, is BTSE.com. There's only one BTSE, no one else. So BTSE.com. Our official Twitter is also BTSE COM on Twitter. I'm on Twitter myself. My Twitter handle is it's a bit it's infinite square well, which is a quantum physics concept. It's INFSQRWELL. So feel free to follow me on Twitter.
Awesome. All right. This was a lot of fun. Thank you, Brian. All the best, and bye for now.
Thanks a lot, Andy. Bye-bye.